All right, let's talk about the Carolina Panthers. I wanted to my goal is to make one of these videos for every single team. I'm not sure if I'm going to end up doing that, but that's my goal as of right now. Hopefully, once a lot of Super Bowl stuff I still have to talk about, still plenty of, gotta do as much as I can there. But yeah, let's talk about the Carolina Panthers, who are a very interesting team to talk about in terms of where do they go from here. If you didn't hear, they had a trade that isn't looking great right now with the Bryce Young trade. They traded a future first-round pick along with last year's first-round pick and DJ Moore, along with some other stuff to get Bryce Young, draft him first overall. Bryce Young did not look great in his rookie year, albeit did not have a lot of help around him. CJ Stroud, who they could have drafted, looked awesome his first year, and then Caleb Williams, who a lot of people are very high on coming out of the draft, is, the first, expected to go first overall. Panthers pick ends up being the first overall pick. So definitely a tough situation. Where do you go from here? What do you do if you're the Carolina Panthers? Well, we'll get into the cap space and all that stuff in just a second. I think the first thing you have to do, though, is establish a philosophy for this season. What are we doing for 2024? And I think to me, the mindset should be you have to help Bryce Young. That should be how you're viewing this. You have to do what you can to get Bryce Young to be as good of a situation as possible. I brought this up on the podcast, and I believe it, which is you create as good of an offensive situation for Bryce Young as possible, because even if he still sucks, well, now you've created a good situation for the next guy, right? Like, it's still a good idea to go out and get receivers. The offensive line was weirdly not great last year because I think there's talent there. So I think that's the mindset. So can they pull it off? How can they make that happen? Well, okay, now let's get into the cap space and all that stuff. The Carolina Panthers have $29 million projected in cap space, which it is some. The cash is a lot better, but I do wonder if they're going to try to not spend over the cap as much this season, try to wait until later. You don't really want to be kicking the can down the road when you're in your rebuilding side of things. So, okay, they have, they'll still probably spend over the cap to some degree because every team does, but I don't know if they'll go that crazy over the cap. So, this is where they're at. They can go out and if they want to, do something like that, but they don't have to. These are their free agents. They definitely have some guys that they're going to want to keep. I mean, Brian Burns is just a guy who, there was the famous story. I still don't know how true it is. People always believe rumors to be fact, which I don't. If you always feel like a rumor is a rumor. We don't know if it's true or not. But the rumor was that the Brian Burns situation, the Rams offered 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns, and the Panthers said no. If that is true, that was a disastrous, I think, idea to say no, because now you have to pay Brian. I probably should have said yes to that in hindsight. But you have Brian Burns. You should probably pay Brian Burns. He's a really good player. Or maybe see if the Rams don't want to give 2 first-round picks for him. I don't know. But for now, you're probably going to keep him. Some other guys that you probably want to, if you let walk, you have to replace, right? Frankie Louvu, DJ Chark, Jeremy Chin, Yetur Gross-Matos. I think CJ Henderson, someone's going to talk themselves into just because, he was a high pick. Shaquille Griffin, I think someone will give a contract too. But, I should mention what this chart is. The number next to their name, that's how many millions of dollars they're projected to be getting paid this offseason. So, there's a guy, I think you want to keep Brian Burns, you want to keep Frankie Louvu. I don't think you need to keep anybody else. And Brian Burns is the one guy where you're like, he's not getting out the door. You can franchise tag him if you want to. I don't see any real scenario where he hits the open market, unless it's like a trade scenario where he says, I don't want to play on a franchise tag, and then you have to trade him, but then you get value back. So, and maybe that wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, because like I said, you want to help out the offense, right? That's kind of what you're doing here. Also, we should mention their draft capital. So as I mentioned, they don't have their first overall pick. They gave that to the Chicago Bears, but them finishing with the worst record still does give you some benefits later on. They get pick 33, they get pick 65, and they get pick 102. So they still are picking at the top of each of the other rounds, with some exceptions, because again, you look at rounds 5 and rounds 6, and they have San Francisco's pick in rounds 5, so they're actually going to go for a 63 picks drought at a certain point, which isn't great. And then Arizona's pick, which is still a good pick, but not quite Carolina's pick in that situation. So, not having their own picks there do hurt them a little bit as well. So a little bit less draft capital than you would expect, even taking out the first overall pick. But pick 33 and pick 65 are still good picks. Those are still picks you're expecting to get a good player from. 33, it's always kind of the joke of like, oh, well, that's basically a first rounder. And then when people say 32, oh, well, that's basically a second rounder. Well, no, they're both basically the same value. But still, there's a lot of value in pick 33, which you can hopefully maybe get a wide receiver for, maybe get someone to help out Bryce Young, which can still be used to your benefit. So there's still some ways to improve in the draft, even if it's not with a first round pick. The draft does go past the first down, despite what some people might tell you. So to reiterate the kind of final chart page here, the cap space $29 million, cash $90 million. The cost to re-sign everybody would be $58 million. And one thing I always bring up is you might be sitting here and saying, we're not going to re-sign CJ Henderson. Why put him on the chart? Well, and I don't put everyone on a chart, but the reason why I put people on a chart is because, like, if they walk, someone's going to pay them, and you're going to have to replace them with somebody. So even if you let these players walk, you are going to have to replace them with somebody. So, they have the money to, I think, re-sign who they want to re-sign, but they don't necessarily have the money to go out. Like, I've heard Mike Evans as a, I think a lot of people are talking themselves into Mike Evans because you don't usually see a really good wide receiver hit the open market like that. But, I've heard Panthers fans talk about that, which absolutely the correct decision. If you can get Mike Evans, you go out and you throw a bag of money at him and you get him. That would be perfect for this situation. But I just think that I'm not sure if that's going to happen because I don't know if they can outbid some of the other teams. And again, if Evans is between Houston and Carolina, Houston made the playoffs. Their quarterback looked awesome. Carolina is in a rebuild. I don't know if, you're going to have to overpay to get him, basically. And you're going to have to overpay for free agents in general, which is why maybe a T. Higgins situation might be the more, realistic, albeit still optimistic strategy. Go out and, you'd have to trade for him, which would not be ideal because you keep having to get rid of draft picks. But to me, if I have to give up pick 33 to go out and get T. Higgins, I'm doing it. I just am. It's the similar mindset to when the Bills went out and they traded a first for Stephon Diggs. Well, I think Diggs is better than Higgins. It's the same logic of like, yeah, maybe this first round pick could create a better player, but right now we just need someone we know is good. T. Higgins is good. I think there's logic there. If you don't want to do that, maybe you just sign someone in free agency. But again, the free agent, so every time the free agent list comes out, it's like, oh my God, look at all these great players that are going to hit the open market. And then half of them get franchise tagged, and I think the other half of them sign long-term deals with their teams because they don't want to get franchise tagged, right? The franchise tag means that key players very rarely hit the open market, which is why a Mike Evans situation is so rare, and it might be worth it to go out and, overpay for him. I wouldn't hate that logic whatsoever. I kind of joked about on the podcast, I kind of feel like they should just go out and, have some sort of Christian Kirk contract, right? If you remember when the Jaguars were, Lawrence was coming off of his first season, Lawrence looked terrible his first season as well. Like, Bryce Young, Trevor Lawrence, not a huge difference in how they look. Now, I think people would look at the Lawrence situation and say that was, yes, worse than Carolina's. I know that's saying something because that was, the whole, the Urban Meyer era, which did not go particularly well. However, I think you look at a situation like that and they what did they do? They went out and said, Christian Kirk, we're overpaying for you. We want you. Yes, this is too much money for what you're worth, but now you have a receiver and now you can maybe work with that. I don't know who you give that to, like Michael Pittman. Is he going to hit the open market potentially? Do you get like a Hollywood Brown kind of situation? I don't know. Is like a Darnell Mooney someone you go after? Do you go after Odell? To me, I might go after a couple of these guys and just hope some of them hit. That might be a good idea. I think I'm spending that 33rd pick on a wide receiver, and I am going out. If look at the best receiver available. Try to get them. If they don't say yes, then you try to get someone else. If Mike Evans says no, okay, well then what's Michael Pittman up to? Okay, Michael Pittman says no. Okay, well what's Hollywood Brown up to? Right? Like that's how I'm viewing it. You got to help Bryce Young. That's the mindset right now. I think they might be able to at least do some things to help him out. That's what I think about all this. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.